International waters are the lesser known Wild West when it comes to arms dealing, illegal fishing and slavery, and much, much more. Investigative journalist Ian Urbina has sailed the seven seas for the last 15 months on a mission to uncover lawlessness on the water, and he joins us now. Fascinating stuff. Ian, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Tell me, what have you been doing for the last 2 years?
I've been getting a lot of very dirty and dangerous boats, sort of trying to lay out the diversity of crime that occurs out there.
So what did you see? What are some of the worst things you saw?
Murder caught on camera, abuse of stowaways, intentional dumping of oil at sea, on the order of more than the BP spill. And every year more oil is dumped. Arms dealing, sea slavery, human trafficking.
Can I go back to the murder? What happened? Where were you?
So I actually was not on the ship where the murder occurred. I was given footage of this murder that was filmed on a cell phone camera, and it was unclear as to where that occurred. But we investigated it, and it turned out it was in the Indian Ocean. And on the footage, it was 10 minutes, 26 seconds, sort of slow motion slaughter. Two men with semi-automatic weapons on one ship essentially picked off these guys in the water who were attempting to flee. And ultimately, it looks like this was a clash between fishing boats that ended quite violently. And to this day, no government has been willing to investigate. It looks like these were Taiwanese tuna longliners.
And this is the problem, isn't it? Because when you're out in these international waters, there are no police officers.
That's right. Yeah, there are laws on the books, but no one to enforce them. And so, it's to each his own.
So why did you start this? What did you want to prove?
I kind of wanted to explore, I think when you mention lawlessness at sea, most people think of two things: Captain Phillips, Somali, piracy, and BP spill. Having worked on ships, I knew there was a lot more going on out there, and I thought it'd be good to bring readers out to the space and show them. And that's as much as I knew and wanted to do. And then it was meant to be a year-long endeavor, and now we're in our third year.
Right, so what about the oil spill you talk about? I mean, BP was massive and it's been well documented. Have you seen something bigger?
Well, so, that's just it. You don't see it. It's a slow motion threat. It's much bigger than BP, and it's intentional dumping in the form of something called a magic pipe, which is essentially where you run a pipe from your engine room under the water. And rather than disposing of the waste legally and properly, you just sort of flush into the oceans as you go. And it adds up. This is every 3 years more oil than Exxon Valdez and BP's combined.
Right. And have you been run off any boats? I mean, you've tried to get on boats and that sort of thing. Have you had any heady run-ins yourself?
Yeah, we have a couple. I actually just got back yesterday with my photographer from Somalia to arrive here, and that was a dodgy trip offshore, and we got run out of the country there.
Any guns to head? Any hairy moments there?
No guns to head, but sometimes words are scarier.
Yeah.
It's what precedes it, and we were told to get out of Somalia right away.
Yeah, so if you go on a boat, are you doing this effectively undercover? Because surely they would be on their best behaviour if you're on the boat.
You would think that. No, at the times we're not allowed to do undercover, so we have to be pretty forthright. We don't have to disclose that we're journalists unless we're asked. But the further out you get at sea, the less people ask. I mean, they're sort of bemused and befuddled as to why you would want to get on a boat that's so horrific. But they're used to it, and we simply just say we want to document life on that boat.
Are you armed with anything? Are you given any sort of weapon or gun or anything to protect yourself?
We're not, no, and we're not allowed to even take armed guards or carry a weapon. And sort of the thought there is that, as a journalist, you hope to be protected by people recognizing you're not a combatant. And so far it's worked. We haven't suffered any physical harm.
What about New Zealand waters? Have you had a look at New Zealand waters? What's happening in New Zealand waters? Is there abuse going on here?
So New Zealand's interesting. So in 2010, there was this historic case where these ships, a shipping company called the Yang ships, had repeated problems which culminated in a bunch of the crew leaving the vessel and alleging rape and being forced to eat fish bait and just horrific conditions. And the government really stepped up and investigated and corroborated much of what was claimed and changed the rules of the game and said, from now on, foreign flag vessels will not fish in New Zealand waters. If you're going to be in New Zealand waters fishing, you have to abide by New Zealand laws, and we're going to inspect your vessels to ensure.
Right, and have we improved?
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, that made a big difference. I mean, it's not perfect, and there are lots of criticisms of whether that enforcement is sufficient, but it's certainly better than it used to be.
See, this interests me. I mean, I wonder how methamphetamine is coming to the country. We have the rise and rise of this meth issue in New Zealand. And I wonder, because we're surrounded by water, because we have so much coast, if meth is coming in via fishing boats and cruise ships, and we have no idea of the extent of it. What do you know?
So I know that meth is an interesting drug, right? Because it's the drug that you can do in your kitchen. You can make it really easily. So meth typically doesn't move transnationally as much. It sometimes does, but it's easier to make in country. Other drugs, heroin, pot, cocaine, is really commonly moved, and especially on fishing vessels because they're rarely inspected and they're hard to inspect. And so I wouldn't be surprised if those other drugs were coming in that way.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a bit of rendezvousing going on, because we had this classic case in New Zealand where a boat was heading out off 90 Mile Beach in the north to rendezvous with another boat, and I just wonder if there's more of this going on than we think in New Zealand.
Yeah, I mean, so that's transshipment, where you switch cargoes from one vessel to another vessel, and it's even tougher to police because no one's watching where the goods are coming from.
How easy is it to actually track or know a significant vessel is out there? Because even 200 nautical miles or whatever it is, I mean, that's a massive area of ocean.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the problems that governments don't enforce, is because it's so difficult to do so. Because you would think in the age of drones and big data and satellites, you could see everything all the time. Actually, not so. And if a vessel turns off, there are two modes of transponders. One that's hardwired and it's hard to tamper with. Very few governments require it. And the other that's more common, but you turn it off if you want to. And the bad guys just turn it off.
I wonder if it's too hard. Out of sight, out of mind. Not my problem, not anyone's problem. I wonder if that's a problem.
That's right. No, I do think the public doesn't really think of it often, and therefore there's not much funding, and therefore there's not much incentive for police departments to do it.
There must be some people living some terrible existences on the high sea.
That's the other issue. I mean, the demographic of those who are the victims are not you or I. These are people that are already fairly invisible, and they don't have a lobby, they don't have lawyers, they're, kind of third world workers. So if they go missing or are abused, there's not much they can do about it.
No one cares. That's the problem. Hey, good on you. Nice to see you. Thanks
a lot.
so much for sharing your story.